Control rarely announces itself. It settles quietly into gaps, reactions, and timing. Most influence doesn't arrive through force or persuasion. It emerges from how the mind responds under subtle pressure. What follows is not instruction, but observation. 7 mechanisms that already shape human behavior. Why silence quietly controls social power. Silence isn't empty, it's pressure. When you stop responding, the other mind doesn't relax. It scrambles. The brain reads silence as judgment, not neutrality, as dominance, not distance. Nothing is being said, so everything gets imagined. People assume they've done something wrong. They start filling the gap themselves, talking faster, over-explaining, apologizing without being accused, not because they're guilty, but because uncertainty feels like losing control. Silence removes feedback, and without feedback, people expose themselves trying to regain balance. The one who speaks first reveals position. The one who stays quiet decides the tone. That's why silence doesn't calm rooms, it rearranges power, without moving at all. Why withholding validation creates invisible control. Withholding validation doesn't look aggressive. That's why it works. When approval becomes scarce, its value rises. The brain treats it like a limited resource, something to be earned, something not to lose. Humans don't chase what's available. They chase what feels just out of reach. When validation appears inconsistently, the mind starts working overtime. Small wins feel bigger. Absence feels personal. Attachment quietly forms around uncertainty. You can see it happen in real time. People seek eye contact after minor actions. They look for reassurance where none is required. They adjust behavior without being asked. Not because they need praise, but because unpredictability creates dependency. The moment approval isn't guaranteed, attention sharpens. Compliance increases. Control doesn't always come from giving. Sometimes it comes from what's never fully given. Why controlled attention shapes power dynamics. Attention isn't just awareness, it's currency. When attention is given selectively, behavior starts changing without a single word. The nervous system links attention to reward, to relevance, to status. What gets noticed feels valuable. What gets ignored feels dangerous. When attention disappears, the body doesn't read it as neutrality. It reads it as loss, a quiet penalty with no explanation. People sense it immediately. They adjust posture, tone, timing. They change how they act when your focus shifts away, not consciously, automatically. Because attention tells the brain where it stands in the hierarchy, and removal signals a drop in position. No confrontation is needed, no correction is spoken. Behavior reshapes itself around where attention flows, and where it no longer does. Why strategic unpredictability creates psychological leverage. Consistency feels safe. Unpredictability feels important. When responses become unstable, the other mind stays alert, cautious, scanning for patterns that no longer hold. The brain prioritizes decoding uncertainty over logic. It spends energy predicting reactions instead of acting freely. Attention narrows. Self-monitoring increases. Over time, this creates leverage. Not through force, through mental occupation. You can see the shift happen. People hesitate before speaking. They test reactions first. They watch your face more than their own words. Not because they're confused, because uncertainty makes them careful. Predictable people are easy to navigate. Unpredictable ones reshape behavior around them. The mind doesn't relax near instability. It orbits it. Why framing reality first quietly controls perception. The first explanation wins more than the best one. When a situation is framed early, the brain accepts it as context, not opinion. Context. Critical thinking doesn't engage first. Orientation does. Once a frame is set, everything else gets filtered through it. New information isn't evaluated on its own. It's adjusted to fit what was already defined. Limits form before choices do. You can see the effect clearly. People repeat your wording when they explain the situation to others. They borrow your language, your structure, your conclusions without realizing it. Not because they agree, because the frame feels like reality, not influence. By the time alternative views appear, they sound disruptive, out of place, wrong. Control doesn't always come from persuading harder. It comes from speaking first. After that, the mind defends the frame on its own. Why emotional detachment quietly shifts power. Emotional detachment isn't coldness, it's control. When emotion doesn't show, leverage disappears. The other mind loses its grip. Humans rely on emotional feedback to calibrate behavior. Approval, discomfort, reaction. When none appears, the system malfunctions. People don't know where they stand. So they push, they escalate, they add emotion, volume, urgency. You can see it clearly. Voices rise, explanations lengthen, reactions intensify, and you remain unchanged. Power shifts to the least reactive person, not because they dominate, but because nothing sticks. Emotion is how people test influence. Detachment gives them nothing to hold. The moment reaction disappears, control quietly changes hands. Why making others invest creates lasting psychological control. Effort changes how the mind assigns value. When people work for something, it starts to feel like theirs. Not logically, psychologically. The brain justifies effort by raising perceived importance. Time spent becomes meaning. Energy becomes attachment. Small commitments don't stay small. They create momentum. Once effort is invested, walking away feels like loss. So the mind protects the decision instead. You can see the signal clearly. People defend choices they worked for, even when results disappoint, even when evidence turns against them. Not because the outcome was good, but because abandoning effort threatens identity. The more someone invests, the harder it becomes to disengage. Control doesn't come from pressure, it comes from getting others to build the cage themselves. These patterns don't require force to function. They persist because the mind responds before awareness. Once recognized, they become harder to ignore. Not because they disappear, but because you can finally see where control begins.